So, welcome back to the Real Football Show. I'm Ryan Lam, continuing this series of Premier League previews with the bigger clubs of the league. And today, I think we're going to struggle to keep this around like 15-20, but we shall try. Fellow United fan with me, Connor Donlon. Connor, how are you doing?
I'm fine, as good as I can get. The season's about to start, so I'll be sad soon. But yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah. So let's get straight into it. We don't have time to waste here. Let's talk about the review part first. Specifically post quarantine United. We see Bruno Fernandes coming in the January transfer window, and he's shown early on in his matches, but then the team kind of hit a plateau, and then the quarantine came, and United got Pogba back, United got Rashford back, although Rashford's a little bit up and down toward the latter part of it. But what are your impressions with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and his team, especially in that red hot post quarantine period that earned United a Champions League spot?
I think Bruno was obviously the strong point. I mean, you put him into the squad, and the squad looked completely different because I think he is such a good player that he makes everyone else around him so much better, especially Pogba. Him and Bruno and Pogba next to each other is a fantastic duo. You have Matic below, ideally, or maybe McTominay. But yeah, like you said, Rashford is sometimes inconsistent, so that's not always great. And the defense is inconsistent too, because sometimes they'll put in good games like Lindelof and Maguire, and then other times they'll, like that Europa League semifinal or whatever it was, right? Maguire just, I don't know who to blame it on, that, because I'm not a defender, but it was poor defending. And so impressions overall, obviously good, because they beat out was it Chelsea, or down like 12 points to get that spot.
And Leicester too.
Yeah, so good on that part, but then I don't know, they should have won the Europa League for sure.
So for you, what are I think you've kind of touched on that as well. What is a player that really impressed during the entirety of past season, dare I say, and one player who you think needs to step up or be more consistent, who has been featuring?
I would say on a short-term basis, obviously Bruno, because when he came in, he was a rocket. He was so good. But the whole season, I think Wan-Bissaka was really good. He was really class, and especially from going from Ashley Young to him was a huge upgrade, because Ashley Young was on the team for way too long. And then as far as people need to step up, I still think Martial. I love Martial, but I still think he has more potential. Like when he's in form, he's so good. Like he's a top striker in the world. And then I never thought it was his, but I think De Gea needs to step up too. And I think after that World Cup, he's been shook. I don't know what. I think mentally he's like not there. And I'm actually excited to see Henderson and him kind of battle it out for the number one spot, because I think that obviously De Gea is a really good goalkeeper, but to actually have some competition now would be good for him, I think.
hmm then let's go straight to transfers. Let's talk about the big deals of the day. Kristen Preston Tobin Heath joining the United Women's. I'm just kidding. I'm not subjecting you to that. I have, I have a women's specialist coming up in the future. But then you got to talk about Donny van de Beek here. $40 million from Ajax, and it's also interesting because as United is trying to snag up Van de Beek, they also offered Sandro Tonali offered Brescia same money for Sandro Tonali, but Tonali opted to stay in Italy with AC Milan. Just of course, that's the only really concrete big team deal that was locked up. What do you think about his fit in United, with people talking about there's already kind of a log jam in the middle of the park?
I mean, it's going to be hard to get into the squad. I don't think he's going to start for a while. I think he'll be coming off the bench like 70th, 80th minute maybe. And like you said, there's a lot of midfielders. Like we still have Mata on the team. Lingard's still on the team. Not, I don't want to call him dead weight, but some of these players are going to have to start to get the move on to get out the door. And I've only seen a couple of matches, especially the Champions League with him and Ajax, and he was really good, obviously. I'm excited Especially for, I mean, it's crazy to say 40 million is not that expensive in the grand scheme of things, but I'm excited and I hope he does well, obviously. And like you said, nothing's concrete. So like Sancho, like an hour ago, they said they're advanced talks. I'll believe when I see it because I've heard that for like 3 months. So even if we get him, there's still, I mean, I was having this debate with my friend the other day. He's like, oh, he's a Dortmund fan. He's like, oh, you clearly just take out Rashford. And I'm like, but I like Greenwood and Rashford also. Like, obviously he's going to start, but there's so many people on the team. It's going to be hard to get in even when he comes, I think.
Yeah, it's funny. Even like when I'm like personally when I play football, I play Football Manager a bunch, and whenever I play Greenwood, maybe past like midway past the first season, he's already a full star for me sometimes, and I was like, dude, I have someone in the place, but like I really need to play you, and that's kind of the United situation right now. But then let's talk about what the team could improve, because in the market, like even like a while ago, I was like literally minutes ago, I was reading an article about how United has been struggling to get players like we both kind of see a dead weight out of the door because of their wages problems. It's maybe your Lingards and your Matas. I love Mata, but like he's not currently in the plans right now. I feel like at least for the next 2-3 years, we got center backs that the team can't really unload in, like Smalling, where there's a contract amount dispute with Roma trying to sign them. And then we talk about players like Phil Jones and Marcos Rojo. Like sometimes you just can't really believe that they're still on the team, but they are. So what moves do you think United can, like, of course, again, coronavirus, transfer market, it's going to take a dip. But what move do you think United should have done? Shall this market be like a normal one that they did not satisfy?
I think they should still be going after a player like Koulibaly. Obviously, it's easier said than done because, like, I don't want to call him a generational player, but he's a very good center back. And when you have Chelsea just bid for Thiago Silva, and it seems like there was no competition there, it kind of makes you wonder, like, we don't have a football director, which is still ridiculous. But yeah, like you said, how Phil Jones and Marcus Rojo are still on the payrolls, like, just bite the bullet. You're not going to get a return for these players. Like, you just have to. I don't think there's not a plan in place for these players, and they're from past managers. Like Smalling, I wouldn't mind having back. I don't think he's that bad. I mean, I think the loan was a good thing for him. But I think that they should have went after another center back. I think Maguire's okay, but paying for what you're paying him is ridiculous. If you can get Koulibaly for like a close to the same price, he's so much better, I think. Because the defense, I think we should have went after definitely another center back.
Yeah, or like just go the youth route. You see Arsenal pick up players like William Saliba for, I know he's relatively improving, but like it's like 30 million for an 18-year-old. That could be a project that might reach the levels of starting center back in 2-3 years, looking at the squad. And there's like Ibrahim Sangare, who's readily available, I think at Toulouse for like 10 or 15 mil that United could take a look at. But then it's just like, I don't understand the transfer policy, just because like the football director thing is another thing as well, because Ed Woodward has proven himself to be just another businessman instead of a football director or someone who has been in football for forever. Like honestly, like if I could make anything happen, I would be bringing Edwin van der Sar from Ajax back to United as the football director. But that's easier said than done. And let's actually go through some of the more peripheral deals instead. Like, they're not peripheral, but then it's less about the money. Of course, Sanchez is gone. Thank God that saga is over. But then we also have Tahith Chong going out on loan. And then maybe this should be the main part of the discussion. Dean Henderson coming back from Sheffield United, being one of the best goalkeepers, in my opinion, in the Premier League for the past season, and challenging David De Gea in a rather shocking form the past 2-3 years. What do you think about that specific positional competition, and starting to look into what you expect of United in next season?
I think it's a good thing. I know we touched on it briefly, but I feel like since De Gea was so good, I mean, I thought he was the best goalkeeper for like two and a half years. Like I think by a long shot.
I mean, it's like from 14 to I want to say 17. He's like
Yeah,
clear cut number one keeper in the world.
yeah. And then after that World Cup, we had that shocker. I just think ever since then, I don't think he's been himself. But I think it's good to have competition. Like you just can't expect to get the number one spot just because you've proven yourself years ago. So I think it's good. And I know Henderson's young and he's been on loan, pretty much every season since he got signed to, Man U's Academy, whatever. So I'm happy that he's back. And I wonder what they're going to do with Romero because I really like Romero because I think he'd be a number one starter on so many other teams. Like he's the best number two in the world. So
yeah, they're looking at teams like Aston Villa and Everton. I think Villa really got close after like basically losing out on Peperania, but then again, same thing. They're not willing to satisfy basically what the wage he has in United, which like United has the money, yeah, but then that could be a problem when we've been talking like we mentioned this like 2 or 3 times already with not being able to offload to players, and basically I don't think the team wants to take the L in that direction.
Yeah, there's just too much dead weight. I feel bad. Like I love Mata, but he just doesn't fit the plans, even if there are plans. I mean, I think going forward, I mean he's only getting older. Lingard has to go too. And I think, like you said, the young players are a good option. Like Brendan Williams he just turned 20s, right? Yeah. I think he's a lot of potential. I mean, he cracked into the first team and he wasn't even 20. So I mean, maybe youth is the answer to some of the problems, but a lot of dead weight.
Yeah, even with like when they're talking about rumors, one has been Sergio Reguilon from Real Madrid, who has a really good performance like at Sevilla this season. They're talking about $30 million, but then also there's an argument between the buyback clause. I can't speak today. That Real might want him back down the road, and it's like, yeah, but are you going to fish out that money realistically with Shaw and Williams being the option? I feel like Reguilon's better, but he's an attacking fullback, hasn't really proved himself in the Premier League, and like I'm not for one to be like consistent, I guess, or like just not looking for improvement. I think Reguilon should be a good signing, but then are you gonna get rid of Shaw? Like who's gonna take that contract? And that's always the puzzling part to me. And plus Shaw has homegrown status, so that might be something to think about.
And they have Dallo too, who hasn't seen the pitch in quite some time, and I like him, but I heard they were like looking into shopping him soon. I don't know. I would listen to offers, but still, like, who's going to pay those wages too? I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of the part where, yeah, you could spend all the money, but then how you manage the intricacies, especially in the back room and with the wage bill, that could really affect the club. So let's directly move on to the expectations. I honestly don't know. Like this team could go very boom or kind of bust. At least their floor has been raised with a proven midfield pairing, and like there's a basically solid understanding of Solskjaer's main lineup. Where do you think this team would finish in the Premier League? First of all, and I know the draws haven't came out yet for a Champions League, but in a normal situation, like just don't assume like a killer group or like an easy group. How far could this team advance in European competition?
So Premier League, like I am in the same boat because they had no business finishing fourth last year because Bruno somehow took them there single-handedly pretty much. So as far as Premier League, I want to say they'll finish fourth. I want to say that Chelsea wins the league. Liverpool's in second, City's third, Man U's fourth.
That's interesting because I don't think Chelsea could get up there yet. They basically have half a new team, and like they still kind of have to work up to the level of Liverpool and City. But then let's move on. If United, like, stakes their claim on the European competition this season. How far do you think this squad right now could advance?
Round of 32, maybe. It might be the end.
Just straight get downs from the group stages.
Yeah, I really don't. At most 16.
Yeah,
that's being really optimistic, I think.
Mm-hmm. So finally, for you, who's a player that you feel like a player here, or maybe one or two players that needs to be that guy for United to, get to those finishes or push beyond to challenge somehow, some way for a better finish?
I think Martial. I mean, he's just sometimes inconsistent, but Martial and Rashford, because Rashford has so much quality, but sometimes his decision making is so awful, and I just think, I don't know, sometimes he really just frustrates me, but I really like him, and obviously he's only 22, 23. Martial's still pretty young, but yeah, those two need to be on for everything, for the clocks to get spinning, if you will. And I think when they're on, the team's on, and Bruno and Pogba, even if they're off, they're still going to put in a good performance. But those two, sometimes if they're off, they're ice cold. So I say Rashford and Martial are the two that need to be on for Man U to go and succeed.
Mm-hmm. So Connor, thank you very much for hopping on. Anything to plug here?
I do. I have my own podcast with my two friends from high school. It is called End to End Stuff. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I think anywhere you can find podcasts. So check it out. And yeah.
Yep. Again, thank you very much for coming on. I will have more of this series. I believe I will have City and Arsenal left before this comes out. And thank you very much for hopping on, Connor.
Thanks for having me.